let's get into the top 3 things to do for this. And the first thing is introspective writing. So it is using writing, and you can think of this like a journaling style of writing. So writing that is only for you, right? It's not writing for anyone else. It's not writing to be published or to be read by anyone else. It's writing for you. And it's writing as a way of processing thoughts and emotions. And what you just said about, right, the dread of if I'm just sitting in my room by myself alone with my thoughts, I don't like what comes up. And the response is, because that's unpleasant, I don't want to confront that. I want to look away. And unfortunately, that does not solve the problem. If anything, it makes the problem worse. And so one of the things we can do is we can use writing to shine a light on the things we're trying to avoid. And so there's a funny thing that happens with this, because one way to think about this is that sometimes all you need to do is become aware of what's going on. And what happens to a lot of us is that we have this feeling of dragging this huge backpack of emotional baggage, right? And it's huge and it's heavy and it's weighing us down all the time. And we don't dare look at it. And it's followed us for our whole lives, or as long as we can remember. And sometimes all you need to do for some aspects of this, all you need to do is actually look, and then you'll see that this backpack is a kid-sized backpack. This is not an adult-sized backpack. This is a tiny little kid's backpack with emotional trauma that was difficult for you to carry and process as a 7-year-old. But now it's actually not a big deal anymore. Sometimes all you need is to take a look at what is actually going on for things to start resolving themselves. Because there are things that you are still... So again, with my experience of school, so like being mocked and bullied in school, if you take a look at this from an adult's perspective, from present Shane's perspective, yes, at the time, these kids calling me names and stuff hurt me. But now it's just a bunch of kids making up silly names. This is extremely unthreatening, right?
Yeah, I was thinking then, if you can imagine all those kids, if they were here, just telling you the same names.
Yeah, it'd be adorable.
How fun! Yeah, but also how funny would it be if it shocked you and you're like, actually, how dare they?
Exactly, right? And so that's one of the things you can do in writing. You can examine, what is this thing? What is this thing that bothers me so much? Where does this come from? And you can get to that was, it's these kids that called me names and it made me feel unloved and rejected and stuff. And I can have, from my perspective, I can very easily have compassion, both for little Shane in that situation, as well as for these other kids. I'm not mad at them,
As an adult, they literally don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They don't know the full extent of what they're doing. They're just reacting.
Yeah. And that is one of the things. So that's what I mean, right? You can use writing to shine a light on something like that and realize hold on, this is what actually happened. And you can come to a level of understanding of this that makes the issue resolve itself.
Yeah. And just to sort of further that point, without writing, there would be throughout my life, there would be many emotions that even today I would have a negative relationship with if I hadn't have wrote about them. So there was an example, an old boss I used to have, I basically used to have a relationship with him which was very difficult, very toxic, and his presence in my life would trigger some deep, deep anger and resentment and bordering on rage. But I was people-pleasing at the time, so I didn't externalize it to anyone, so it became inwardly directed, which is where it would manifest as depression or something. But then I remember distinctly, I'd had a discussion with him that left me feeling horrific. I was like, right, okay, this needs to be written out. So I set a journal, I opened the journal, got home, opened the journal, got a pen, and I said to myself, right, I'm going to write down whatever comes up. I'm going to write down this emotion that I'm feeling. I'm going to give it a voice. I'm not going to avoid it. I'm not going to judge it. I'm going to let this thing, this emotion within me, have complete expression. And the things that I wrote were, to be honest, quite scary. But After 3 or 4 pages of just manic note taking and images and drawings and just the craziest stuff, I felt relieved because I had actually given something that I previously deemed to be threatening a voice.
Yeah.
And I saw that this thing was it was a part of me from a while ago that felt essentially powerless, because I didn't necessarily get bullied, but I had some dodgy experiences in school myself that were related around me essentially like not being courageous enough to speak out and stick up for myself. So when I'm in a situation where I'm feeling like someone's overbearing and has power over me and I don't stick up for myself, it's more like inwardly directed anger towards myself. And I recognize that. I wasn't angry at him. I was angry at what this situation represented. I was like, here is yet another situation where someone is using power over me and I haven't got the balls to speak out and stick up for myself. And I would never have realized that if I'd have not written that in a journal. That would have just manifested itself as depression. And I don't know, I honestly have no idea where I'd be without that practice. And it's amazing to me that we're using this and we're putting this forward as a solution for people, because there are people out there who are experiencing things that are more intense than what I experience, but have no idea how to handle this at all.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. And it's so what you described there as well is that you're basically using writing to externalize thoughts and feelings in a way that if you just think about them, even if you sat down and thought about it, like deliberately, which is most people don't do that either, right? But even if you just try to do it in your mind, it would be too vague, right? It would remain vague and threatening. But it's almost like once you write, so you have a thought or an emotion or something, you write it out. It's almost like that clears a little bit of the fog and you see the next thing, and you write that and that clears a bit of the fog and you see the next thing. And eventually, and I've had writing sessions like that as well, where it's just like it's pouring out of me until eventually it's like all externalized and it's like, okay, this is no longer in me now. And I can finally see a clearer picture here.